Throughout history, storytelling has been a large part of our lives. Somewhere along the way, we began losing this tradition. But some of our people have maintained storytelling throughout their work.
Yeah, some people, they say if our stories aren't told, that the information is lost forever. In a sense, that's true. But in another sense, it isn't. The sense in which it isn't, if I take the time to learn my language, all the things that are here now, or the things that were there at the beginning, where our ancestors learned from Raven, they learned from the nature, they're still there. All the information is there. I just have to know how to ask the question so I can learn those things. But if I don't try to learn anything of the language, then it truly is lost.
Well, as a director-producer in this day and age, using digital technology means that our stories will be here forever. For so many years, our societies have had an oral culture where we've passed on the stories just from generation to generation. With the use of this technology, we'll be able to keep them, actually physically keep them, and for our generations to come in our communities. And that's really what it means to me. And it also means that there are people who are able to tell their stories that have not been able to access this technology because of the way that what they call the convergence of all the technologies coming together. In that, when they talked about the 500 channel universe, for instance, and all of that. Now, it's like anybody can make a film and put it on the World Wide Web.
There are different types of storytellers. Excuse me. There are those who tell the stories that entertain children. There are others who are the keepers of the history of a clan or a family. And then there are others who've been taught the history of the people as to where they came from. And so the stories vary from village to village, from house to house, depending upon what their point of view is.
Storytelling to me is something that comes from the heart. It's been used for centuries as a form of knowledge and sharing, a form of cultural expression. As I drive to this valley ringed with the history of desert survival, loved ones past and present recede into landscape, are submerged in memory, so many leaves under snow. In the dance of worlds, the pulse of her blood through our hearts enlivens the play of words. In time which sanctifies, or existence which typifies the natural illumination of all things, between particles of dust which permeate the air we breathe, between shadows irradiated by lamplight on the screen, dust, leaves, stars scatter, are folded away.
The stories come. You got to honor your past, but at the same time, you got to realize that all these things that have happened to our heroes and our cultural heroes and our heroes of the past are still happening today. And it's our responsibility to recognize them and incorporate those into masks. It's our responsibility to incorporate them into songs so that our storytelling never dies, but it changes just a little bit.
I believe that our songs and our ceremonies before the camera came to our people, potlatch, Sundance, powwow, which is more contemporary, that was our theatrical performances, including someone who spoke.
Okay, the hurdles that we must overcome to preserve the tradition of storytelling is our own hurdles, which could be say for example, someone who, I was always ashamed of who I was as a First Nations person, so I never got into my father's culture or my mother's culture. Like in my father's culture, they dance, they do, you know, in every culture, every First Nations culture, there's the drum. And so for the longest time, I was so ashamed when there was a drum dance. And because I was so ashamed of who I was, because Western culture and television and magazine ads were all telling me that I had the wrong color skin, I was in the wrong culture, I was living in the wrong place, I was telling the wrong stories, and so I was so vulnerable to outside information that I wanted nothing to do with my father's culture or my mother's culture. And so that was the hurdle, that's the hurdle that I must overcome now so I can access their stories.
My job is to bring you into the story, and they tell us you sit a certain way, and then sometimes close your eyes and you go into the mouth of the storyteller, and when you go down inside you can see if that person is hollow, telling you the truth. But once you get in there, now you become part of the story. So it isn't just using your ears, you have to experience the whole thing.
Many years ago, I could remember my uncle. My father had passed away before I was born, so my uncle and aunt who looked after me, every evening there was storytelling, telling of who your relatives are and who had helped us in the past, and that if we owe anybody something, we have to keep them in mind. And in those days, there were a lot of people that helped us. And in turn, if we don't help someone, then we're going backwards.
One of the things we do is we carry with us a picture of where we're from. And if I carry that picture in my mind of where I'm from, I always have a reference point no matter where in the world I go. But if I lose that picture, I'm lost. And it's the same way with navigation on the ocean. So long as you hold that picture in your mind and you know you've got an idea where you're going, you're not going to be lost. But when you lose that picture, you're lost. So you've got to know where you're coming from. Many times you ask people, where are you from? And they'll answer, well, originally. I don't want to hear that. This is where I'm from.
People from the First Nations communities all around have been oppressed for centuries, right? And there was no really way, a real way to get out and to talk about what is affecting them. I come from two different things, and I'm kind of weird on that way that I never grew up in a society that was oppressed. But I think I've come to a point now where I've been able to harmonize and bring them both together and talk about things that people are not necessarily afraid to talk about, but I'm able to voice my own opinion. And I think it's important for people to see my work and to see that someone like me, who is of two societies, and one being an oppressed society and one being the oppressor, that they can talk for themselves and go on with their own version of storytelling, and mixing it in with their traditional voices. So they take that traditional aspect of storytelling and then bringing it into something in a new realm, which then perpetuates the notion of storytelling.
You know, it's not so much that I tell the stories. You know, they were always different every time they were told. So this is my rendition of it. You know, I can only give you what I've seen and what I've heard. As a healer, as a native, as a human being, I have to express myself duly to what I've learned.
There's a need to allow young people to express themselves as they wish, and to not, I think as older generation, to not be so tough on them, to allow them to have the freedom to express their ideas, because I think that time has changed, from when I was a teenager to being a teenager now is, I'm sure, totally different.
Asking supplication. Right. So it's if you don't catch the nuances of the language, you're going to miss that. You hear people say, I raise my hands. That doesn't mean I give up. It means I'm expressing respect. The one thing I'd like to leave you with is this whole thing about filmmaking. To me, it's a very, very powerful medium. In my mind, it's making magic. I guess I'll never grow up because to me, films is making magic. And I think it's a way of being able to tell our stories. Because with the technology we have today, if I can imagine it, we can portray it, we can show it. And so filmmakers have that responsibility of presenting it as accurately as possible.
I'm going to put this feather down for a second and pick up this piece of paper here. Storytelling comes from honesty, humility, and respect. It doesn't come from capitalist ideas and schemes. But then other times, you know, we don't want that culture, you know, we want what is ours.
Don't just stand there and watch me die, shit. Do some, yo. Release your worst fears and slave for me. I know the pain is another day for me. Hold on to grudges, wash them away from me. Talk about tripping since the hell's gate for me. And how eradicate the devils who got hate for me. Seek, search, destroy, devastate for me. Meditate, illuminate, levitate for me. Isolate, immigrate, segregate for me. Violate the magistrate and escape for me. Popping MP3 CDs and taste for me. Battle scars, bruises, bumps, and disgrace for me. Please don't stand up and pray today that we demon slave for pay. Slice fillet till the hemoglobin spread. And shower bringing flowers to the month of May. We play a hole in your mind like once a day. Desensitized about us loving it that way. I've been ready for the worst and I expect this made. It's when there's no disappointments when it's straight. Stand tall with me when the sky turn gray. Stick with me to what aesthetic I display. I'll continue this even if I die this way. Document a demon to his eyes. Pray so run for your life, our heroes stay. Steady slicing even where the darkest lay. Living life illegal, simple for the tyrant's way. Tell me who is our saying when the cowards pray. Please don't stand there and pray for me. Believe me was fear and stay for me. All the things in the day for me. Aren't you first heroes that will wait for me? You're so close and hold it tight. 1,001 demons get a roll tonight. Vampires sleeping with the poltergeist. Priest kill the baby.